All right, I believe that I am streaming. Let's see if that is popping up here. It says I have an excellent connection. How nice is that? I don't see myself yet. I think we are coming in now. There it is. I'm Kenneth Arthur. This is Saturday, April 3rd, 2021. Today, I just want to continue to try screwing around with this setup and this channel and trying to figure out a nice way for us to develop a relationship here, a regular relationship, a consistent relationship that allows us to talk about the Seahawks or the NFL. And so I'm going to need your help to do that. So if you could send me any questions that you have, that would be fantastic. And we could talk about that. To start things off, I'm going to look at Reddit, which I like Reddit because it has the story, some of the stories, not all the stories, and but it is also a very biased place. It is also a very politicized place. I don't want to get into all the people who make Reddit go. They're not the best people, but you gotta ignore some of the comments. Not speaking directly to the Seahawks subreddit. I don't know the Seahawks subreddit that well. I'm here, Mark. Yes, indeed. Let's go. Thanks for joining, Mark. The Seahawks but the Seahawks subreddit, I don't know the commenters. I don't know exactly. I don't follow this subreddit very often. But again, some stories here at least for us to start talking about. So the top post on Seahawks subreddit today, I think Lockett wins best comment on his own re-signing picture. The Seahawks announcing the Tyler Lockett extension. So that's one thing that I can talk about today. If anybody wants to talk about the Tyler Lockett extension, 4 years, $70 million. Seems like a lot of money. I haven't even gone into the details. I haven't looked at all of the details at this point on the Tyler Lockett, the updated contract, because obviously when contracts are signed, it's so confusing, especially this year with so many void years now being added. This is a reminder that sometimes things evolve and they're evolving right in front of our faces, but we don't really recognize it for what it is. And the NFL, I think, has evolved so much in the last year. These last two draft seasons, this whole COVID pandemic, I think the NFL, it has changed forever in ways that we don't really know or recognize yet. And contracts are part of that. And the Seahawks deciding to extend Tyler Lockett probably to save money now and also to secure, his services for the future. Because I think as we've seen, a lot of receivers entering the NFL seem to be of high quality. It seems like a lot of teams are getting good value out of the wide receiver position, but also a lot of teams continue to have needs at wide receiver, including the Seahawks, even having two players that had over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. With this very rare accomplishment, Seattle has a huge need at wide. Maybe their biggest need is at wide receiver. Also, probably in part because it is now such a specialized position that it's like you've got this wide receiver who does that, and you've got that wide receiver who does this. You got the slot, the X, the Y, and the Z, and it is very important that these are very specialized with different strengths. It becomes. It's not enough to say you have a wide receiver need. You got to say, well, you have a need for this very specific type of wide receiver. And in the NFL, if you look at the 49ers, that's very specific type of wide receiver isn't even the classic traditional type of wide receiver. A guy like Deebo Samuel essentially is like a tall fullback, slightly taller fullback who is playing wide receiver, who's just big and strong, and he's like a Marshawn Lynch receiver who catches the ball and then makes a lot of stuff happen after the catch. I'm trying to see if I can find here the details on Tyler Lockett's contract so that I can say what his cap hit will be and all that, but I don't know if that has been released. If you've seen that it's been released, please throw that in the comments. I'm reading here the news about Tyler Lockett officially signing the deal on the Seahawks website. Well, I could just throw that up here. Seahawks wide receiver Tyler Lockett signs multi-year contract extension. John Boyle, April 2nd. So this is not even 24 hours ago. I think, Mark says, I'm cool with the Lockett money, but 4 years seems long. I do think that the length probably won't be so much of an issue. More than anything, this type of contract, we knew that Tyler Lockett, unless because he was going to be a free agent in 2022. So unless the Seahawks opted to make him a cap casualty or a trade, put him on the trade market, you would think that, he was going to definitely be with the Seahawks in 2021. This contract definitely ties him to the Seahawks in 2022, and it definitely ties him to the Seahawks in 2023. I would say that this is essentially a 2-year extension. Even without knowing the details, this is essentially a 2-year extension that keeps Tyler Lockett through 2023. And then there would probably be a significant, although totally absorbable, dead cap hit if the Seahawks released him prior to 2024. So when you think about it in that sense, Tyler Lockett's going to be 29 this year, 30 next year, and then 31 in 2023, which again, he'll probably be financially tied to Seattle. It's probably one of those situations where they get to 2023 and the Seahawks really did need to move on from Lockett like they did with Doug Baldwin shortly after his extension, or Cam Chancellor shortly after his extension, or Michael Bennett shortly after his extension, or Marshawn Lynch shortly after his extension, or maybe even Cliff Averill shortly after his extension. Not all these extensions haven't worked out so well as Bobby Wagner or Russell Wilson, but for Tyler Lockett, if they had to, if something went horribly wrong in the next 2 years and they had to move on, there might be a slight savings, $1 or $2 million that year. But for now, I would say it just mostly ties Tyler Lockett through them with the team through another couple of years. And I just don't think that there's going to be anything in this article that we didn't already know, which is nothing against John Boyle. He's doing a great job over there, I'm sure. But I just don't think there's anything in here we don't know, which is what I'm mostly looking for. But it says, I think Lockett wins the best comment on his own re-signing picture. Seahawks announced Tyler Lockett. Seahawks, special things ahead. Tyler Lockett's comment, thanks for giving me hair. So there he is. Tyler Lockett's got hair. I suppose that Tyler Lockett might be balding. Is anyone out there balding? Any advice for Tyler Lockett on how to bald? It's Cam Chancellor's birthday today, I guess. Happy birthday. I watched this man since I was 7. Glad to have spent the memories watching him deliver the blows. Now this is good to read because he says he was 7. This Redditor was 7 in 2011. You would assume Cam Chancellor's first year, 7 in 2011. That would make this Redditor 16 or 17 years old today, and good for him. Go for the Seahawks. Everybody, I was a Seahawks fan at 16 or 17 years old. Thankfully, didn't have Reddit at the time. The only way you could make your point or your voice heard at that time was on Sports Talk Radio. KJR 950 would have been my choice. Not so much at 710, but would have gotten something there on 950. But that's where the 16 and the 17 and the 18-year-old comments usually got thrown to. And that's just a little bit exemplifying what I think you get when you read Reddit comments or see what's been upvoted or downvoted on Reddit. Sometimes we look at Reddit or we look at the internet and we go like, well, this is very popular. This is something that this is number 1 on Reddit, so it must be popular. Just remember, this is popular with a very specific group. It's not the world, the internet is not the world's opinion. It is the opinion of a very specific group of people who are online, who are on these websites, who want their voices heard, I guess that's me. I guess I want my voice heard, but just remember that upvotes, retweets, faves, likes, the most doesn't mean that it is popular opinion. And if anybody has any Seahawks questions, just go ahead and throw that in the chat. So here we have an update a day ago from Brady Henderson. Carlos Dunlap's 2-year deal has a base value of $13 million and 3 extra void years. So that's what I was saying earlier about the void years. If you missed that, lots of stuff evolving with contracts this year because the 2021 salary cap went down from 2020. And because the salary cap is expected to go up again in 2022 and 2023 with much bigger jumps than usual, teams are adding these void years so that they have a really low cap hit this year and they can have the same players kind of that they would have had and then have them and then those void years, it'll mean that the Seahawks and all these teams have to pay a little bit of cap money for players that aren't on the team. The Rams did this last year with Leonard Floyd. This is not a new thing, but it is something that is now much, much, much more common because of the pandemic, because of the way that teams have benefited from void years. The idea of going all in on a certain year, on an upcoming year, is probably potentially more popular than ever right now. And it is in large part maybe because we are living in the salary cap era, the free agency era. All of these things contribute to the idea that teams have to now become strategical with how they want to win, when they think they can win. The Detroit Lions being an example of a team that's like, we cannot win right now. We don't see franchises typically give up on franchise quarterbacks potentially in the middle of their careers. I understand that, it's not necessarily true that the Lions are giving up on Stafford, and I understand that it's true. It's not necessarily true that Stafford was ever going to help the Lions, and it's not necessarily true that the Lions, Lions could have made a great deal to get back anything. To get back anything is a bonus. Sometimes quarterbacks or players or whatever, they just get. Andrew Luck. The Colts didn't get anything in return for Andrew Luck deciding not to play for the Colts anymore. He just also decided not to play for any other team either. So the Colts just get nothing for Andrew Luck. They don't get a 3rd-round comp pick. They don't get a 7th-round comp pick. They don't get a conditional 2026 6th-round pick. They get nothing for Andrew Luck. So, in the case of Matthew Stafford, he didn't retire. The Lions got 2 first-round picks. They had to take on Jared Goff. I don't want to say that they got Jared Goff. That was a burden. But they got something good back for Matthew Stafford, but it's still not something that we have ever really seen before. Teams just admitting, this ain't us. We aren't 2021's darling team. We give up now. Going for it in a couple years, So fine, maybe that's the best strategy. I think that the Houston Astros, if you're a baseball fan, would be a good example of a team that said, we want to lose a lot of games right now so that we can win a World Series, win a championship down the line. It's not a new concept, of course, but just very well publicized in the last decade by the Astros. And in the NFL, will that work? I don't know, because these teams, the Jaguars and the Lions and the Jets, they're always doing this. They're always bad. But usually those bad teams, they stuck with the quarterbacks and the quarterbacks stuck with the team. Phillip Rivers, the Chargers were not going anywhere with Phillip Rivers, stuck with the team. Peyton Manning would have never left the Colts if it wasn't the perfect formula to get him off of the Colts. And I think he went to a much better organization, one that could go to the Super Bowl twice in 4 years and win one, and have a great offense, when they lost to the Seahawks, and maybe would have won the Super Bowl if they had faced anyone else besides the Seahawks. The Colts, not a good, Broncos, good organization. Colts, I think, not a good organization. And I think that there was just you got to start at the top. And anyway, with regards to the Rams, they get this, last year they did these void years on Leonard Floyd's contract. He signed a 1-year, $10 million contract, but the cap hit was only $6.66 million, and this allowed the Rams to have Leonard Floyd last year when they wouldn't have been able to afford Leonard Floyd. And because of that, Leonard Floyd, he sacked Russell Wilson like 8 times in 3 games. So if the Rams hadn't been able to use these void years, they might not have signed Leonard Floyd. And then Leonard Floyd, maybe they don't have that guy who's able to take advantage of, Aaron Donald's double and triple teams against the Seahawks. And who knows how much differently the wild card game goes, or the NFC West goes, without Leonard Floyd, and that's because of void years. And so we've seen that more and more with other players. And with regards to Carlos Dunlap, the Seahawks using void years means that his cap number this year, instead of being $14 million, which is what it was going to be before they released him, it's now $2.9 million. But it doesn't mean that Carlos Dunlap gave up $11 million. He did give up some money, but it does mean that he's able to stay for $11 million less. It also ties the Seahawks with him, for another year, and then they have to pay him some money when he's not even going to be on the team. Overall, I think you have to give the Seahawks a really good evaluation on this signing, even though, all grades are meaningless. Don't worry. I don't want to say like, oh yeah, I'll give this a really good grade. I think it's the right move it's a move that it's not really even like right or wrong. It's just like, well, yeah, makes sense. The Seahawks really wanted to keep Carlos Dunlap. The fact that they've managed to add a player like Carlos Dunlap for so little in a trade, BJ Finney and a 7th round pick, and then on a $3 million cap hit in his first full season with the team, and then they get Kerry Hyder as well. It's very it's been good for the Seahawks offseason, even though they haven't changed a ton and they've lost Jaron Reed and they've moved around a little bit here and there, to add Gabe Jackson, to add Kerry Hyder, to keep Carlos Dunlap. Yes, they've lost Shaquille Griffin. The Seahawks don't seem to be in the best position at cornerback right now, which will have to be something that is addressed at some point. But I think that is something where overall the Seahawks seem to have maybe gotten a little bit better. Some of that will depend, of course, on how Shane Waldron is as an offensive coordinator, but it's possible the Seahawks got a little bit better. I don't expect them to get any better in the draft. This is something I briefly mentioned in the Seaside Joe today. If you read the Seaside Joe, and it was very brief because I just wanted to send out a link for this live stream so that people could come in and I could get some more practice with this, with talking on camera and answering questions and finding something here as I'm wading through the weeds, finding something here to attach myself to for video content. But Marshawn on the Pat McAfee show, I didn't see this. I think that I've talked about media. I've talked about the NFL media a lot. I've talked about my issues with some of the media, and I've talked about good shows and bad shows. And I do think that Pat McAfee could be the best show going right now. I would love to, feel like I could be up here with Pat McAfee, and I wish that I was as doing this as well. And plus, of course, he has such a great connection to the NFL, having played in it and everything. Again, I don't know if I'll get kicked off the live stream for playing somebody else's content, but I am doing commentary on it.
Things, both as a businessman off the field and
here
on
it is,
the field.
Marshawn Lynch on Pat McAfee show.
Pops your mind, like, what's the craziest shit you've ever seen in your entire life? Because there was a time there where it felt like you were just getting dropped into insane situations, and the world was like watching you do things. Man,
I'm sure that this is like where you get copyright strikes, because this is what happened to me before. I think it's mostly on live streams, and then they just say like, well, we have to stop your live stream. I guess we'll find out. I was just going to stop playing that video because of the fact that Marshawn Lynch is on there. Gerald Everett says that he and Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf are working on setting up some workouts together in San Diego. Good. I mean, I don't know. I imagine that everybody, I imagine a lot of teams get together. This is one thing that I didn't say about the contracts this year and the evolution of contracts that I've been mulling over in my head, which is the fact that there's so many players who were free agents this year who signed somewhere and then said, oh, I took less money to play here because I really want to play here. I took less money. I had other offers for more money. We hear this in sports every now and then. All of a sudden now it's everybody. It's every player who signs for not that much money, but we expected that players were going to get less money this year because of the aforementioned hit to the salary cap. And you hear a lot of players saying, I took less money. I took less money to go here. I took less money to go here. I wanted to go there, but I wanted to go here, so I took less money. There were other offers for more money. Everybody's taking less money. Everybody is taking $1 million, $2 million, $3 million less in a pandemic, at a time of financial uncertainty. I don't know about that. I don't know if I really see all of these players taking less money. It seems like something, I feels more like, hey, people are going to think that I'm not valuable now. I gotta have more. I realize that I'm taking less money because there is less money. There's literally 17.5 or so $million less for each team to spend this year. There's literally less money, and everybody's saying that they took less money to stick with a different team. It could be true. Maybe the Jets and the Jaguars threw out huge numbers to a lot of players, and a lot of players said, yeah, but I don't want to play for these organizations. That could be true. I mean, anybody could maybe take less. You know, it's like if it's $100,000 less, or if it's $500,000 less, and you're calculating state tax, and you're calculating the fact that you have to move, and maybe you've got a house in the current city already. Like, you know, there are players who, yeah, they just stayed where they are. And you're like, oh no, it's only a 1-year contract for $3 or $4, $6, $8 million. And look, there's a lot of reasons to stick, but it's not really expected to say like, oh, well, if you took a 1-year, $6 million contract, did you turn out a 1-year, $10 million contract? Did you turn out a 2-year, $13 million contract? What does it mean to take less money? This seems to be, again, just kind of like a story that a lot of people have run with, and it makes people feel like warm inside to think like, oh, this player on the team that I like took less money to be with the team that I like. That makes me like that player more or something. And I don't know. I mean, if that makes a person feel better about the player, I think, you know, I just don't know that. To me, it's similar to how all of a sudden this year everybody can run a 4.34 in the 40-yard dash at their pro day because there's no combine. And then all of a sudden, all of the numbers at pro days now seem unreliable. Like, there's probably somebody who has averaged out and aggregated all of the pro day times and the measurements, and if you compare that to a regular NFL combine, I really want to know what percentage faster these players are, what percentage higher can they jump, what percentage longer can they jump, how many more reps on the bench can they do on average. It seems like this draft is full of first-round picks from the first round to the 7th round, and at the same, you get these guys who are coming up on the draft and shooting up the draft board, and you don't know, and this is why, you know, Seahawks, I think the best thing that the Seahawks could have do in the draft this year would be, you just wish they had 10 day 3 picks. This is the year to be the Seahawks. Have a first round pick, trade down 3 times, add 2/3, a 4th, 2/6, and a 7th. This would be the year to do it. Add 12 players to the roster. I mean, this is what the Seahawks would want to do. And I think that the next piece of research ahead of the draft would be, well, who are going to be the best undrafted free agents? This may be where Seattle makes all of their push, is to just be the most on top of the undrafted free agents and identifying the guys who don't get picked and have the highest ceilings and are getting overlooked, maybe because of the fact that they were, I think that the guys who I would be banking on this year, I think a lot of people, I think a lot of teams, I think a lot of fans are going to be banking on these projects, these guys who you look at them and it's like, well, he didn't play last year, but he runs so fast and he jumps so high and he was a beast at the Senior Bowl or whatever. I mean, I don't hate this being good at the Senior Bowl, but there's just going to be these things where the players who have, 60 career catches in college, but are 6'1" and run the DK Metcalf types, then people go like, oh, I want that next DK Metcalf. I would say in a year of all this uncertainty, just kind of like with the stock market during the early stages of the pandemic, I remember hearing a lot about the best stocks to buy in right now are the really stable ones, the Netflixes and the Apples and stuff like that, to say like the long-standing stocks that do well. And to me, the players who I think are going to have the best stocks in the draft this year, maybe, always feel free to take the shots in the 6th and the 7th round on maybe those guys who do have not so much of a college track record, but are really interesting athletic projects. But I kind of think that those guys are going to go higher than ever this year. And maybe the guys that are going to slip because of that are the really steady, 3 and 4 year college starters, the guys who had, Big Ten, Pac-12 accolades, SEC accolades, the guys who were considered good team leaders, and the guys who, played alongside a lot of these bigger names. One of the best rookies for the Rams last year was Jordan Fuller, a 6th round safety out of Ohio State, played with a 1st round pick, and Damon Arnett played with one or two other 1st or 2nd round picks. I can't remember their names right now, at Ohio State. And then he comes into the Rams. He's a 6th round safety, started the whole season at strong safety next to John Johnson. And this was even though the Rams had drafted another safety in the 3rd round, Terrell Burgess. And I think that Jordan Fuller, is a guy that should have gone on day 2, and he goes in the 6th round. And I think looking for those really solid veteran college players might be the best bet for the Seahawks this year. And looking down at that day 3, again, I think this is such a good year to have a bunch of day 3 picks. And unfortunately for the Seahawks, they have a pick in the 2nd round, they have a pick in the 4th round, and they have a pick in the 7th round, I think. So that's not going to get them very far, even trading down in the 2nd round, which I'm sure that they will be trying to do. It can't net them a ton of extra stuff. Maybe they'll be borrowing from their 2022 draft to get back into the 2021 draft. I don't know what exactly Seattle's plan should be or will be for the draft this year. I know that it's going to be difficult for everybody. Not envying. I think this could be the year. I think that there could be 6th and 7th round guys being projected for the top 5, the top 10. Some of these quarterbacks, it's nothing against them, but you just wonder, like, well, what makes this guy a top 10 pick if every other year players exactly like this were 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks. Now they're 1st round picks. Now they're top 15 picks. It's nothing against them, but some of these guys, it's just like, how did that happen? And maybe they are. Because we know that Russell Wilson was a 3rd round pick. Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick. We know Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. We know that NFL teams get shit wrong all the time. We know that some of the worst quarterbacks were picked in the top 10. And this year, it just seems like, are there really 5, 6, 7 1st round quality quarterbacks? Are there really 5 top 10 quality quarterbacks in the draft? This is nothing to do with the Seahawks. They won't be drafting a quarterback, I'm sure. Yet you also start to think, what with the uncertainty at quarterback for a lot of teams. And, I don't really want to, this is like where you get, this is Reddit right here. A Russell Wilson rumors mega thread that's been pinned to the top for a month. And it's just, well, here's all the Russell Wilson stuff. You got rumors and stuff. And then it still gets pinned here in April. It's still pinned to the top of the Seahawks subreddit, and I'm still sitting here going, wait a minute, shouldn't this be called trash? Instead of calling this Russell Wilson rumors mega thread, shouldn't it be titled, put your trash in here? Put trash in this thread. Here's a thread for trash. And yet to Reddit, this is not trash. This is the number one story to talk about. Rumors for things that don't exist. So I don't want to feed this by saying that the Seahawks could or should draft a quarterback, but they could or maybe even should consider drafting a quarterback if they loved Kellen Mond or Kyle Trask. If they saw something in one of these quarterbacks that they once saw, and mostly this was John Schneider and Darrell Bevell probably, but they once saw in Russell Wilson, well, why not? Aaron Rodgers has a backup first-round pick, and it hasn't really disrupted the Packers like a lot of people said that it would. Who cares? They have Jordan Love now, and it gives them. I'm sure that if Aaron Rodgers comes up in a couple years and he's still looking like an MVP and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure that the Packers can get a nice trade haul for Jordan Love, similar to the Patriots and Jimmy Garoppolo. And you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, and nobody really takes enough time to stand back and go, damn, Patriots did really good with Jimmy Garoppolo. Drafted a guy in the second round in a range that almost never produces starting quarterbacks, traded him for a nice haul from the 49ers, took advantage of their desperation. What's wrong with what they, and now you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, not a starting quarterback anymore, not for the 49ers, not going to be the starter there. I mean, even if they draft a guy and say he's going to sit behind Garoppolo, it's not going to last very long. So there's nothing wrong with maybe if the Seahawks love a Kellen Mond or a Kyle Trask or whatever, there's nothing wrong with drafting a quarterback or a Davis Mills at Stanford. These are probably the day two guys, or a Jamie Newman. Again, we overanalyze and over-obsess with the quarterbacks because I can name 9 or 10 of them, and only maybe 3 of them will ever stand out in the NFL. And that's my point, though, is just how funky this year is with the draft. Is I just don't know how some of these guys, nobody really even takes the time to like sit back and totally talk about it. Some guys do go, why is this guy being... Is it just me? But with some of these guys, like JT O'Sullivan, I like his YouTube channel. If you guys know JT O'Sullivan, former quarterback, a longtime backup in the NFL, or he was around for a little while. The Saints, I most remember him on the Saints, but he has a YouTube channel called the QB School, and he has Kellen Mond ranked 4th, I believe, and then he's got Mac Jones 3rd, and I believe he might have Justin Fields 5th and Trey Lance 6th, I think. But it's just everybody's got a different opinion, and that wouldn't necessarily always be the case. To have this many people who are that split, I understand there's sometimes people like, no, I've got Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence, or there's other years. The Jaron Reed situation, since I haven't gotten any cues yet. So, I guess that's early days of trying out this live stream, this understanding that I got to, layer in some consistency, some relationship here, and then maybe weeks down the line, we'll get in a rhythm here. But Danny O'Neill, always been a very nice fellow to me. I think one of the nicer fellows in the Seattle Seahawks writing world. I think Danny O'Neill, just so you know, I'm one of the nicest guys I've met in that realm, and it's nice to say that about somebody. Danny O'Neill on Jaron Reed. Seattle was going to pay him the $8 million. They just wanted to add some dummy years to defer the cap cost. Jaron Reed wouldn't sign off. Now he'll only make $5 million and will still be a free agent in 2022, same as if he agreed to the arrangement Seattle proposed. So Jaron Reed he talked about this thing about guys who took less money, and I'm skeptical of it. Well, here we have a case with Jaron Reed of a guy who took less money, and I can't be skeptical of it. He definitely, without a doubt, from all the reports on Seattle's side and on Jaron Reed's side, took less money to not play for the Seahawks. He'll be playing for the Chiefs. I don't know if he knew that when he told the Seahawks to release him, but he did take less money. He took $3 million less to play for the Chiefs instead of the Seahawks. And you go, why did Jaron Reed want to be off the Seahawks so badly if he's not giving up any money to restructure his contract, if they just wanted to lower his cap hit? Why? And there's probably a lot of potential reasons, but Jaron Reed did say that he knew he would be getting less money and still wanted to move teams. Is he telling the truth? Is his agent telling the truth? Did they really know that this, did they think that being a free agent would mean that Jaron Reed would get a new big contract for several years? Or the same amount of money to play on a 1-year deal? Like Carlos Dunlap got less money as well, like I said. But did Jaron Reed know? No. Did he really want to make $3 million less to play for Kansas City? Does he think that the Chiefs, I think everybody thinks that the Chiefs are, favorites again to win the AFC and get back to the Super Bowl? Maybe the Bills would be the favorites. Maybe people like I'm sure people will overrate the Browns. I'm sure I'm overrating the Chargers. But did Jaron Reed really know? For the Seahawks' sake, it's fine for them, I think, to say that they would save the $8 million, the $8.95 million. Great. Well, then they save that money. They add a couple other players, and then it moves on. But I think that it's just kind of odd that Jaron Reed would do that purposefully. And I think also it kind of works out in Seattle's benefit to just say, save money, not just save money this year, but if they were going to add those dummy years and defer the money down the line, then saves money for the future, and it'll give the Seahawks more opportunities in the future because they didn't really have any opportunities this year. A meme, fellas. I see that the Rams have Corey Littleton, and here is Russell Wilson, and he's big, and there's Aaron Donald, and he's smaller, and I don't know who this is because this is Clay Matthews with a reversed jersey. I don't know why. I guess because he needed to Photoshop this, he had to reverse Clay Matthews. So and here's Corey Littleton, and he's on the Raiders, by the way, and he's retired. So he's on the Raiders. He's retired. And he's always giving Russell Wilson a bunch of problems. And this is a meme. I don't get this. Does anybody get this? Am I crazy? What is so good about this? 279 upvotes submitted 2 days ago. What do the comments say? You could have one of these with DK and you wouldn't even have to shrink the other players. Because DK Metcalf, he's big. What do you mean these players weren't shrinked at all? Sarcasm. Okay. Was worried that I wouldn't get that it was sarcasm. This was a really bad edit on my part. Well, I'm glad. It doesn't matter. You got upvoted. I bit off more than I could chew because I had to remake his left arm, and part of it, him jersey, Aaron Donald was originally blocking it, and the file corrupted twice. I mainly posted it because it's April Fools. Nah, this is gold tier content. Keep going. This is gold tier content, my friends. By the way, I didn't get any gold. Nobody gave it gold, but it is gold tier content somehow. I don't know why I'm just randomly shitting on somebody's Reddit, but it is a bad place. I gotta say it's a bad place. Look at Russell Wilson, and I don't understand because the Rams don't have Corey Littleton. Was this post? This was the 2019 team that had Clay Matthews and Corey Littleton. Big Ben is bad. Again, a lot of people were only coming into consciousness during when Pete Carroll became the head coach. or when Russell Wilson became the quarterback. It's funny and all. It's funny and all. But Littleton plays for the Raiders now. Even tiny Rams getting past the O-line, you can see why he mad. He wouldn't have to shrink the other players. Wouldn't shrink it all. Gold tier content. That's what you get on Reddit, which is, I guess, again, this is my decision to be here. So DK Metcalf, a lot of memes, I guess, here. Oh, look, it's a small, there it is. You wouldn't have to shrink him. He's a small guy. There's some DK Metcalf going on. This is what you can expect on the live streams, I guess, for now. Twitter, Russ liking them D-extensions. Matty F. Brown, who I hired at Field Goals. I hired Matty Brown, putting him into this Seahawks Twitter sphere. And he's really, this is the thing, Matty Brown, another guy, Sam Gold. I know Sam Gold isn't a Seahawks fan. Roped him into the Seahawks world because I hired him at Field Goals. Matty Brown, don't believe he was a Seahawks fan. Roped him in to the Seahawks. Now he's all about the Seahawks. Now let John Schneider extend Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. Set up the Seahawks defense with elite safety play. Russell Wilson vindit Luke. I guess that means Russell Wilson liked it. I don't even know if Russell Wilson, how would Russell Wilson even see this? Russell Wilson doesn't follow Matty Brown. He doesn't search Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. Are we sure that this is the real Russell Wilson? Now let John Schneider extend Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. Set up the Seahawks defense with elite safety play. I just don't even know that is Russell Wilson. And is that what people want? Do people want a Quandre Diggs extension? There has to be an extension for Jamal Adams. No, and it is coming. Similar to like Jalen Ramsey last year with the Rams. Like Jalen Ramsey was how, what was the Jalen Ramsey? It's coming. There's no question that it's coming. With Jamal Adams, there's no question the extension is coming. It's going to be the biggest contract extension somehow, in some way. It's got to set some sort of record. Trust me, it'll set some sort of record, and it'll happen probably in September or August, and that's fine. I think that as far as Quandre Diggs, he's getting $6 million this year. There's no reason to lower his cap hit, really. And by doing that, extending him for longer, I just don't really feel 100% confident that there is a need to have Quandre Diggs around for a longer time. I'm sure that if it was Russell Wilson who liked that tweet, I just don't know why he would. Not because of the extensions. It's just like I said, he doesn't. That's not what Russell Wilson's spending his time on Twitter doing. If it had been tagged with Russell Wilson, then maybe it would have come across his notifications somehow. But I just don't think that that's what Russell Wilson is doing on Twitter. I don't know what you guys feel about Quandre Diggs. I would love to get some your thoughts on Quandre Diggs. I'll put it on the big board here. Quandre Diggs, the stats. Quandre Diggs, 5'9". They're calling him a cornerback on Pro Football Reference. I don't know why. 5'9", 197 pounds. This is what I always think in my head, by the way. These are the thoughts about that I just share when you look at a player's Pro Football Reference. I'm always like, well, how accurate is this? I guess the height should always be accurate, but the weight could be off by, sometimes the height isn't accurate, number one, and the weight could be off by 20, 25 pounds in some of these players' cases. Who knows what's their playing weight? What's their game day weight, is this just their combine weight when you're very specifically getting a combine weight in? I don't think that this is ever updated ever. Nobody ever updates their weight. Why would they? Seattle Seahawks. I said time because he's from Houston, Texas, maybe. January 22nd, 1993. 28 years old. Quandre Diggs, he'll be 28 all season long. Went to Texas. College stats, Texas, 6th round pick, 200th overall pick by the Lions in 2015. A 4-year starter at Texas. Never missed a game. 13. Tackles went up every year. Some sacks. Always been very good with interceptions. 11 of those in college. Very, very, very good. 6th round pick. He's from Texas. Quandre, Twitter, Q Diggs, is the brother of Quentin Jammer, former 5th overall pick of the Chargers. This is Quandre Diggs' brother, Quentin Tremaine Jammer. So if you guys remember Quentin Jammer, which is crazy because, Quentin Jammer hasn't been in the league for so long. He was out of the league 2 years before Diggs entered the league. And Jammer, 21 career interceptions for the 5th overall pick. Quandre Diggs was a 6th round pick. He has 14 career interceptions. Chance here that Quandre Diggs could have more interceptions than Quentin Jammer, which would have not been expected, both because of the positions they played, their draft status, how much playing time they got early on in their careers. But Quandre Diggs also Pro Bowler last year. Don't know did Quentin Jammer ever make the Pro Bowl? No, he did not. So there you go. First Pro Bowl in the family. And the cousin of Cedric Woodward, a 6th round pick himself in 2000. I know, a long, long time ago. And guess what? Played for the Seahawks as a defensive tackle, 4 years. Who remembers Cedric Woodward, 2003, 2004? Did not realize he was the cousin of Quandre Diggs. And that's stuff that you'll only learn on the Seaside Joe live stream. This is our pre-draft post-free agency check-in. Quandre Diggs, last season, full season, 16 games. The only time he missed some time here in 2019. Like I said, very consistently showed up in college. For the most part, very consistently has shown up in the NFL last year. 64 tackles, not at all involved with rushing the passer. 10 passes defensed, career high. 5 interceptions, career high. It's not always the best time to give out extensions right after career highs. This is maybe the worst time to extend a player. Sometimes people go like, oh, this is the best time to extend a player. Quandre Diggs has proven that every year he's gonna have 5 interceptions and be a Pro Bowler and get better and all that kind of stuff. No, it could just be that this was his best career season. And if you extend him now, you're paying him for his best career season, which will never happen again. So there's that. And then there's also the risk that, he'll continue to get better and better. He just needed to be with the Seahawks instead of playing for the Lions. There's also a case to be made that Quandre Diggs has been held back for 4 years because of the Lions. And now being with a better team, he'll be better. Same with, as we were talking about earlier on, if you saw that, talking about Matthew Stafford getting off the Lions, I think being with the Rams, the whole perception on Matthew Stafford is going to change if he continues to play. I think if he continues to play the way that he really can play, but doing so for an organization that is better equipped to give him success. And that has never been the Lions. How many times do I have to pound it in people's heads that these organizations are doomed? Sometimes people are not necessarily, say like doomed, but what else do you call it? Every single year it's the same, and people are expecting different results because the team gets the 1st overall pick or something like that. Like, I like Trevor Lawrence as a prospect, but going to the Jaguars is bad for him. Going to the Jets is bad for Zach Wilson or Justin Fields or whoever. Typically, all of these teams, going to these teams is bad. If the Lions draft a quarterback, it's not good for that quarterback. To expect these people to turn around these organizations, it just doesn't happen. You look at the Jets, how high people were on the Jets when they got Todd Bowles and Jamal Adams, and they thought, finally, the Jets are doing things the right way. They got Todd Bowles, and I think that's a great head coach hire. And then they got Jamal Adams, and I think that's a great draft pick. I go back, I made a video that I never released about Jamal Adams because it became all this work, and I have like this very long thing, and I'm just like, well, maybe is this even right? Do I have all my facts right? And I just wanted to make sure it was right before I put it out. But Jamal Adams, people go, these are the right people for that organization, and they come out of there with less value than they went in. So I can be hopeful and I can be optimistic about Robert Saleh, or if they draft Zach Wilson, and to say like, yeah, these are people who I would expect to do well. But at the same time, everybody that goes to the Jets fails. Everybody that, for the most part, everybody that goes to the Jaguars comes out feeling not good about their time spent with the Jaguars. This isn't 1 year of evidence. This isn't 5 years of evidence. This isn't 10 years of evidence. For someone like the Lions or the Jets, it's 50 years of evidence. It's ownership. Look at the Washington and their ownership. Look at these teams that just constantly, even the teams, sometimes teams win Super Bowls. Like a team like the Bucks, who has won 2 Super Bowls this century. And you say, look, the Bucks have won 2 Super Bowls this century. There's other organizations that have none, and you would say that they were good or whatever. But what about every other year for the Bucks other than those 2 years? Is that worth it? It's any team can come in and have one lightning in a bottle type of year. It happens. But long sustained organizational success, Tampa Bay doesn't have that. They have 2 Super Bowls. It's like the Florida Marlins, You come in every now and then and you win a championship, but then you just stink for every other year. Tampa Bay is running it back with the exact same team next season, and maybe that is the best way to go about it. It's a commitment, I guess. But I have to say that these teams just do not do well with players, and it's over and over and over again. So maybe Quandre Diggs comes out of the Lions organization and he does just so much better, and there's just all pro. Maybe next year he's an all pro, and then the Seahawks will regret not extending him this year. But I'm just saying that typically career years are not the best time to extend players. You have to expect ebbs and flows, and you have to even to some degree assume that a career year is an ebb, and that it is just that's the top, or it's a flow. I don't know, but some of the advanced stats say, and you have to also be, again, I went over like what I think about, like how I don't think you can trust weight. Don't think you can trust weight. You can trust maybe family, I guess. I don't think you can trust weight. You can trust your family. You can trust, you can't really trust numbers, but it's good to have them as a reference point. And then you really have to be skeptical of these advanced stats. Nobody is cross-checking this stuff. It's different from site to site. If you ever put some of this stuff to the test and look at the film, it's completely wrong. PFF is, I'm not saying PFF is lying, but if a person told me that PFF is lying, I wouldn't call that person a liar. I wouldn't, I would say like, oh, interesting perspective maybe, but nobody is checking. Nobody. You just believe. I've spent years just believing. You can't. I shouldn't have. I don't anymore. But I would still talk about it, So we have different, we have to use all of the numbers in conjunction with each other and then come out with our own conclusions and believe whatever we choose to believe. But looking at some of these advanced stats, it's just, there's stuff going on of like, Justin Fields at Ohio State and whether or not he goes to a second read or his third read or whatever. And you get one site coming up that says Justin Fields hasn't gone to a second read. He's only gone to a second read 7 times this year. And then you've got a video popping up that says, here's Justin Fields going to a second read 8 times in one game. And so, film seems better than those stats, but then at the same time, how do you know what you know from film? How do you know that you're seeing what you think you're seeing? You cannot always trust that what you have a perspective, and your perspective is playing a part in your belief there on that POV. That's why with PFF, they don't have anything going for them inside of the NFL. It is all outside observers, teenage interns and low wage fact checkers, watching games, assuming that these people are doing a good job, not having the time. I'm not even like the people in charge can go back and rewatch everything that they told their employees to go watch and then go like, yeah, you got that. That's why they pay the employees to go watch them. But the same people who are making these memes on Reddit, the same person, I think it would not be surprising to me to say that the same person who made this meme of Corey Littleton and Clay Matthews and they're tiny and they're tackling Russell Wilson, the same people who made that could be giving you PFF's grades. And I can't say that that's a fact. Nobody can tell me that it's not a fact, that it's false. And I do know of people who have had that job before. I can't say that I would trust all of them to tell me their opinions on what a good block was for a right guard, or what a second read was, or what a target was, or what a drop was, or what a pancake block was, or anything. Why are we just blindly trusting these numbers? Why do we not ever go one step further with our questions and say like, well, we just say like, well, this is his PFF grade for week 7. Here was his PFF grade for week 7. You didn't even ask what that means. What does a grade mean? How did they get to the grade? What was your opinion on that? Why can't you watch the game and say we just go, it blows my mind. I mean, it really does, that we have so much faith in this idea of some anonymous person way down the line at a company, and then eventually gets spit out, here. But that being said, it is what I have. It's what we have to look at. It's what we have to work with. And then we can talk about it and say, does that feel right or does that not feel right? But ultimately, I think it's good to look at the numbers, to look at the stats, and also be skeptical at the same time. Something like 5 interceptions is almost the most, it's something to say like interceptions aren't like a valuable way to measure defensive backs or whatever. And at the same time, I think that's true, because you can get 5 interceptions and be a bad cornerback. However, at least we know that interceptions happened. There's no denying that these 5. So in some ways, they're the most reliable stats, because at least we know that this happened. This is the most, even a tackle can sometimes be in dispute. But an interception is an interception. So at least we know that Quandre Diggs is very good at getting interceptions. 3, 3, 3, and 5 over the last 4 seasons. I'm not going to pull it up here on StatHead. Although fuck it, I will. This is how StatHead works. You have to pay a subscription. It's not that much, but I'm assuming that most people, I kind of assume, just from my experience working in the NFL media, I have no problem paying these subscriptions. I think a lot of my colleagues probably do, and I wonder if that's going to be coming in as a part of like people falling behind, because I've used this every day for 10, 11, 12 years. It's so cool. It's so helpful. You can do things so fast. So let's see how many players have 3 interceptions in each of the last 4 years. We'll go back 4 years. So 2020, 2019, 2017, 2017 to any. We've got the search for the total number of seasons, descending order, statistical filters. Let's go with interceptions, at least 3 or more. So how many total seasons in the last 4 years, guys with at least 3 interceptions, and Quandre Diggs, as we knew he would be. Quandre Diggs, Marcus Peters, and Harrison Smith are the only players to have at least 3 interceptions in each of the last 4 years. Marcus Peters has played for 3 teams. Diggs, of course, has played for 2. Smith, has played for 1. So those are the 3 guys. Interestingly enough, Marcus Peters, former University of Washington cornerback, somewhat controversial in that he'll do well, and then the teams will not want to be around him anymore. Obviously, has been very adept at interceptions, and even more so than Quandre Diggs, and he's very available, doesn't miss a lot of time. 865-3509. 865-3509. But that's Marcus Peters, and then Harrison Smith. And then the guys with 3 seasons. Such seasons would include Jesse Bates, Trey Boston, Kevin Byard, Xavier Howard, Dante Jackson, J.C. Jackson, Janoris Jenkins, Justin Simmons, Tre'Davious White, and Marcus Williams. So some names, some not huge names. A few first-round picks, a lot of second-round picks, a couple round 3 picks. Not a lot of day 3 picks other than Quandre Diggs, Trey Boston, and the undrafted J.C. Jackson, which is kind of interesting. I think that, again, this year's day 3 will be even better, which is a nice way to come full circle and round out this live stream hour. First report on the Saturday live stream Q&A. My first report is that no cues. So I do appreciate everybody for watching. I did want people to just observe if they chose to do so. If you have any questions in the future, you can throw those in the comments below, and I'll address them next week or next time, or just in the comments. And that's it for this episode of the Seaside Joe Q&A live stream. Come back next week and I'll try it again.